The condition is really crazy condition.
I mean, that shouldn't give away the whole secret to professional windsurf.
Matteo Iachino giving Antoine Albo a run for his money. Here we go. What a finish.
The guy is kind of talking bullshit.
The team's just got to work a little harder.
Welcome to the Windsurfing podcast, back again for episode 54. And this week, we're going to speak to one of the all-time greatest rippers. Yes, it has to be said. He grew up in the Gorge, though, before moving to Maui and being a major part of the Ocean Academy. We're going to talk to him about his older brother and how that affected him and his progression. We're obviously going to talk about the World Tour and life on it and how it wasn't really for him. We're going to talk about video projects and obviously the Windsurfing Movie. We're also going to talk to him about those early sponsorship deals, the Maui Project movement, which was a super interesting one. And we're also going to talk to him about what is happening now and his deals and how he works with KT and Goya. Who is it? Well, it is, of course, Levi Siver.
Levi, thank you so much for doing this. How you doing?
Right on, buddy. Really good. Really good. Happy to be here.
Yeah, listen, there's so much to talk about. I have no idea where to start. So I just thought maybe a good starting place is when your parents decided to move to Maui. I think that's kind of a pretty good thing. And I just had Alex Mussolini on the show, and obviously he attended Ocean's Academy. Was that always like the plan? Like, okay, we're going to take Luke and Levi to Maui. We're going to, start a school there, and we're going to do all this thing, and the kids are going to be pro windsurfers. And what was that? Because it sounds pretty.
I know, it's kind of out of this world. Like looking back at it, I think my parents were, they were not conventional. They're always thinking out of the box. And we were basically, me and my brother just got really hooked on windsurfing in the Gorge. And they were the ones that were like diehard windsurfers. So they would drag us to the beach and we just like play on the beach. But they definitely had the drive just to be in the water. And then when Luke and I got into it in the Gorge, it was kind of like a seasonal thing. So we'd ride in the summers, windsurf in the summers, and snowboard. And then the weather just kind of got grinding after a while, like the colder weather and the clouds. And I remember they came up to Luke and I, and they're like, do you guys want to go to Maui or Mexico? And we're like, seriously? Maui? So we moved everything over, and then my dad stayed back and he had to like sell the house and do some stuff. So it was basically like helping funding the transfer, and we basically just homeschooled. My brother was like early high school. I was like grade school. So we did some homeschooling for like, maybe I think it was about 1 or 2 years, and maybe a little bit more than that, maybe 3 years. But then it was basically, they had the idea of doing like accredited Hawaii curriculum where people could get legit, diplomas and everything, but also pursue their passions and their sports. Like if it was surfing, we had some pro surfers too as well, and windsurfers. And it'd be like, we had like, the first time in Hawaii, there was like an internet-based a curriculum where, we were doing like the Christian McCulloch Academy. And it was like dial-up internet back in the 90s. You'd do like, you hear that every morning.
Yeah, when you pick up the phone,
probably, yeah, you're probably too young to hear that, but
no. I remember picking up the phone and hearing the tones and like that going like, put down the phone. I'm on the internet.
So funny, so funny. But then it just took off like a wildfire. I mean, it was just like the Europeans like heard about it, and it's just like people were wanting to send their kids, because there's like exchange programs in Europe. And so, it was just like really taking off. And then, MTV heard about it, ESPN heard about it, and it just started getting a lot of exposure when MTV Sports picked it up. And it was pretty rad. There was definitely a cool run where it was there wasn't as much hoops you had to jump through with the Hawaii curriculum and stuff. Like in terms of like, you know, like, I mean, they let the kids drive the vans down and go windsurf. I mean, it's like they're 18 or 17, 18, some of them. But, you know, there's all these rules and regulations that started to get really more difficult. But we've had lots of people wanting to resurrect it and bring it back.
So you reckon it's possible to resurrect the Oceans Academy?
I mean, I think it would be really cool. I definitely know there are people that would like to do it, and I'm sure there are investors that would like to do it. And I think it's kind of a cool time now, like with the whole, you know, the Zoom and all the way people were doing school before. This is a way more integrated way where it's like you do have the teachers, but you have the internet. And you have, I don't know, you have a platform, at least for people that are really interested in their passions at a young age, to find a balance where they don't feel like they're being, I don't know, they're like with so kind of over pressure, because there's a lot of athletes that want to pursue their sports, but then they want to get an education at the same time. And those athletes sometimes are punished in a way, like they're not supported. And, I feel like that having a platform that can accommodate that type of, it's not for everyone, but there are like kids out there that I think would excel really well in the program.
Yeah. Well, do you consider
like me?
you doing that? Like, would you consider like, you know, finishing whatever your mom started, kind of, in a way, you know? Or
yeah, my mom and dad, it was stress, you know, like, there was a lot of rewards, but it's just a different time now. They're doing it. I think it was primarily through the 90s and then a little bit of the 2000s, but the 9/11 thing became difficult for the European students because of the passports. Because after 9/11, things just got complicated with exchange programs. It got just even more difficult. So, but I don't know. Maybe now there's another pathway through it all.
Yeah, right on. Growing up windsurfing in the Gorge, were you that kind of? Because I know you love the old school movies and, you know, also from different sports and surfing and snowboarding and whatever. Were you always that type of windsurf geek, let's say, even as a kid? Or
yeah, I mean, we were pretty dialed in on the movie stuff. Like Luke and I, we were watching like Heart and Soul and, you know, the first Full Lookout film, and we had the music memorized, we had the different scenes, the segments memorized, and we just to thrive off of it. I think the films, for sure, watching them in the Gorge were definitely like drawing us to Maui and definitely drawing us to want to be better windsurfers. And the killer loop was pretty huge. There's a huge scene back in the Gorge at that time. I mean, there was like a lot of energy and a lot of like, you had the Pritchard brothers and Ian Boyd, and you had just these guys just charging on these like breaking what was it, Tiga boards or something, these plastic boards. They used to snap them, and like the rumors would be like, did you hear that Pascal Hardy snapped another plastic board like at Doug's Beach? And it was just a cool scene. But then it'd be over, like, you know, fall would come and it'd get cloudy and rainy, and we just wanted to keep going.
Yeah. So when you came to Maui, what struck you? You know, like, you know, all this thing already from videos. You probably know where the rocks are, the cliff, the whole setup, you know, Hokipa, from all this. I mean, that was the place, wasn't it? I mean, still is probably, but you know, I mean, much more so probably back in the day. I mean, everything I can remember, I'm like, I think like 10 or 11 years younger than you. It still was always Hokipa, you know, all the VHSs, all the stuff, you know. So what struck you when you first arrived?
Well, just the humidity, for sure. One, like coming from Oregon to Hawaii, definitely feel the atmosphere so much different in the more tropical environment. But we arrived, I think it was like I think it was like November of 92. So we arrived like during the Aloha Classic, and it was, I remember driving to the beach. Maybe they competed or they had an off day, whatever, but like everybody was mainly gone. And it was just the rigs that were on the beach. And I remember like walking around and just seeing like Robbie Nash's sail and the 1111, and Luke and I just like tripping out. Like, is this for real? Like, is this going to be our new home? So it's definitely Paul. Say hi, Paul.
Who is it?
Windsurfing.TV, man.
We're doing the. For those watching us on YouTube, that was Paul. That I butchered his last name always. Fishbowl Diaries. Yeah. Just glassing a new board.
Yeah. This is a scene here at the cannery. It's funny. I get my own office, so I kind of like I have my little sanctuary here, but it's funny when you step outside. It's so much amusement. What I was saying is like, just taking it in. And I think once I saw that, and then I think Luke had a similar impression. I can't speak to him completely like for him, but I know he was driven as much as me. But when I saw them compete, I was maybe 12, and I was like, it's like, it was just those seeds were planted so deep in me. I was going to do this somehow. And it was so intimidating and impossible, but there was no other path in life that I wanted to take.
Yeah. And then, you start sailing and obviously improving. And I mean, being there, it's just so consistent, right? Every day you can probably windsurf, pretty much, 300 days a year or whatever.
Yeah.
Waves, no waves.
We used to windsurf so much. It's like crazy.
Yeah. But did you realize at one point, like, shit, I'm progressing faster than these other kids, or like I'm actually, like, it comes relatively ezy, like, oh, I'm doing aerials to be honest, now, I'm doing loops. At
that time, there wasn't any other kids. It was Luke and I. We had a whole group of windsurfers, like a whole gang of us in the Gorge, but it was just Luke and I that moved over. And it wasn't until some years later that some of the younger guys started showing up. There was only like Martin Esposito. He came a little bit, I think 95, or he was there early, like 94, and he was really good. And he was, I think, actually better than us. He got in the North and Mistral, and then he excelled really fast. And then I don't know, I think the pressures of the sponsors kind of like, there's too much pressure. He didn't like the restrict. I don't know. I can't speak for him, but I feel like he definitely, like, there was a time where he bailed. He might have gone back to, I think, maybe France, but we just kept hitting it, and it was just basically me and my brother. And I honestly would have never pursued to the extent or to the depth that I did without my older brother, because I have these conversations with like Josh Angulo and with Kevin Pritchard, and we're all younger brothers, and our older brothers are like nut jobs. They're crazy. They've always like you think about Mark Angulo, Matt Pritchard, on the motorbike, he gets nuts too. And my brother is like, I remember going on vacation to Pipeline when we were teenagers, and it's like 6 foot Hawaiian. And me and my parents were like, where did Luke go? And he like went to go get his surfboard, and he's like paddling out, pumping Pipeline. And we're just like sitting there tripping. And I'm like, my brother is from another planet, totally from another planet. Like we were there to admire the wave, not to go surf it.
Yeah.
And it's like, stuff like that.
Sometimes like you'd post some pictures of him, or I'd see some on Fishbowl Diaries or whatever, and like he'd do like a triple mast cheese roll and whatever. I'm like, it's definitely still a nutcase.
It's a loose screw effect, and it's an older brother thing. And it's like, Josh and I will laugh about it, because you watch Mark windsurf, and Mark is just like, he'll take the hardest beatings you've ever seen in your life. Like, even in his 40s, he was just getting so, like no shut off switch. And my brother's the same way. Like, I'm like, Luke, you can't just show up at the beach and like drink a beer and like whatever, like go straight out and like send it like into like a 40-foot cheese roll when it's offshore and haven't sailed in like 2 months. Like stretch or something.
Yeah, that's classic. But there's this even there's this study that like they measured like champions in different sports and whatever. So many of them are younger brothers, you know, just because you have somebody that's a tiny bit better than you. And
the psychology's, it's perfect because you get your stature later, you know, you don't grow as quick. And, you know, the older brother is kind of trailblazing and getting the attention, even from the parents and from the, you know, the community. And I think the younger brother, that's just like sitting there brewing like coffee. It's just sitting there, just marinating. And that's what it was for me. It was like, I think it was that's kind of that effect of feeling like you're being pushed down a little bit that I'm so thankful for. Because I feel like if it was too easy, you know, like I don't think I would have wanted it as much.
Yeah. Yeah. And also like you want to do you want to hit the same benchmarks the same time he does. Me and my brother, we learned forwards. He was already like 16 and I was 12, you know, and you know what I mean? But it's like he did it, so you got to do it.
The forward is the one that ruins you too. Like if someone gets it before you, I remember that's the move. That's like your graduation. You're like, now you're a legit windsurfer. Yeah. You're part of the forward loop club, you know, like, yeah. So funny.
Yeah. Yeah. So my first recollection of you through like magazines and stuff like that must have been a little later, like when you're probably like already 18, 19, like kind of end of JP Neil Pride for you and like beginning of F2 and that Maui Project thing. And maybe let's remind younger listeners what the Maui Project was. Because I think that was a pretty cool concept at the time, which these days would have been probably big on the internet and whatever. But back then it was... Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we thought it was cool. I don't know if other people thought it was cool, but I don't know. It was kind of an interesting, the industry was in kind of a shifting mode. Boards and more were kind of making changes and a lot of people wanted to leave. Some people wanted to come in. And I remember, I mean, I love being on JP. I think it was like, I was the first ever team rider on JP. It was just Jason. So I was the very first team rider. And I was like, it was me and Polacow, you know, I was just like, this is epic. You know, I was just like, this is how I envisioned it, you know, like it's like apprenticing under the, you know, the Jedi master at that time. That was, but then like Josh Stone came in. Nothing against Josh Stone. I love Josh Stone. We were good friends, but it just, I don't know what it was. Like, I think we were
takes a little bit of attention, doesn't he?
Yeah. And I think we were, I mean, we were a little cocky back then for sure. There's definitely a cockiness about us. And, you know, maybe it was just like, I kind of saw, I don't know, the attitude of the generation before me in Maui. They were like, you look at the Rush Randalls and you know, it's just like pretty intense. And I just felt like you kind of had to maybe overcompensate, you know, a little bit. I feel like, especially when you're 10 years younger than everybody. And so I'm like, Josh Stone's coming on, I'm out of here. Or, I didn't see it like that, but I'm like, at the same time, I had a mutual friend that was, he was kind of on the phone with Boards and More. And he just kind of said this one thing where he's like, yeah, you know, Levi's interested. And they're like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, but you got to step it up. Like, he totally like prepped it. He's like, like, it's no joke. You better come in with something legit or he's not going to talk to you or something. You know, he's just greasing it up for me so good. I could say his name, Rosario. And he definitely put the word in for me. And then, yeah, the communication started. And that was one of the bigger gigs I've ever had. I mean, like in terms of like opportunities, like
yeah, like basically at 19 or something, you have like your own board line and like a whole thing around you where it's like, it's still till this day, the Maui thing has some sort of gravity towards it, you know, because it's the roots and there was a little bit of fuck you in there as well with the, I don't know, the promotion and the ads and whatever. I don't know. There was some energy, let's say, around it.
Yeah. And it was at that time, I'm trying to think of, well, then Andy Wolf, he was on, and then Kevin Ponterra came, and it was like the three of us. And we had a lot of freedom just to do like, they're like, Andy, you do all the graphics, and then you guys just, you know, like, what do you want? You know, what do you want to do? It was pretty cool to have that freedom. And Wolf did the graphics, and then we just basically and then we started working on a movie that took like, I don't know, 3 years to make. But it was cool. Very, very special little moment there.
Yeah. Even before that, like, was it always the plan? You say you arrived in Ho'okipa, there was the contest, and, you know, was it always the plan, like, you're going to go on tour, you're going to prove yourself the way, I mean, at that time in windsurfing, nobody really did anything different at least from what I know, like, than just going on tour, making your mark there, you know, that's our champions, let's say, you know. And I kind of like maybe somewhat like bought into the hype that I didn't really completely understand. You know, I think at that time I was like, I kind of felt like being on Maui and where I was just so pursuing that world. And then people are like, yeah, you're going to be world champion or whatever. And I'm like, yeah. You know, you're going to do the tour. I'm like, yeah. But in my mind, like, I don't think I was ready for what was to come in terms of like, I didn't have enough training in the European conditions. And then they're kind of expecting you to be this guy that's in Hawaii and to do the same thing, you know, in Zilt or these places. And I couldn't really figure them out. I had a better luck in Gran Canaria just because it's windy and you can get good fast in Gran Canaria if you're committed. But the other places, it was just kind of a shock. And I felt like I kind of like, it was almost like slightly overhyped in the psychology of feeling like you have all this pressure. And I don't think it was like an ideal. Some people can handle that pressure, but I didn't do so well under that kind of pressure. So it was kind of difficult for me. Because it was like, it's funny, no? Because some of the guys, they translate, like, I don't know, like Josh Angulo is in Silt is like, you know, for sure one of the best, you know, and you wouldn't associate him maybe with those but you know
it took him a while. It took him a while. I mean, you see him where he is now, like this very polished, like incredible competitor. But, you know, he had like some glory moments in his younger years, but he lost a lot, and he took a lot of humbling in Europe. You know, that's what made him the fierce competitor he is today. Because he's like, the Pritchards and him, they're like, they realized what was going on and they made the changes immediately. They're like, we can't ride this gear. You know, we got to ride like flat rockers and we got to like play this game. And they became masters at it. And I was like, had this like, you know, self-sabotaging, riding the wrong equipment and doing stuff like that would just like, it just removes you out of the game. It removes you out of the heat.
Did you just want to like prove your point that it could translate, or was it just like lack of, you know, knowledge or dedication towards like, I want to be a world champion or whatever, you know?
I think it was just like people expected you to just know. You know, like now you have all these coaches and trainers and managers, not necessarily in windsurfing, a little bit, but in other sports where you're prepped and you're like ready for it. But it was back, I felt like you just kind of had to figure it out for yourself. You had a lot of people supporting you, a lot of people's expectations on wanting to do well. But sometimes that makes it worse because you're not even doing it for yourself. You're doing it to I'm not like victimizing it, but you don't want to let people down. And that's like sometimes not always a good place to be. When you get older, it's okay. But when you're young, it's like, oh man, it's huge. It can be huge.
Yeah. No, there's definitely quite a few stories like that, I think, where, as you say, there's almost too much hype or too much. Yeah. And then you're alone, right? Maybe if somebody throws his or hers or whatever arm around you and kind of shows you the ropes and whatever, but I don't know. It's really interesting.
Or just to be like, this is not that big of a deal. You're making this thing out to be, it's just a contest. It's a sport. Like, enjoy it, win or lose, like just bring your best and like kind of bring you back down.
Yeah. And actually probably like the brand managers and the people that really know, they didn't expect you, right, to win straight away. I mean, I don't know. It'll be quite silly.
I didn't expect to win, but maybe they did. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have fun on tour though?
Oh yeah.
I think a lot of, like your interviews throughout the years and Windsurfing Movie and all these kind of things that they show this, a little bit like an image of I'm actually, I suffered, like I.
Oh yeah.
Well, you know what I mean? Like I want to ride real waves and I want to.
There was a lot of that for sure. There was a lot of that because in one way we're sort of elevated because of all the way we can perform in, down the line conditions. But then we're like the real big stage in a lot of ways is in different conditions. So if it was firing, maybe it would be, but it was challenging for us. So it was like, I think we just wanted to have more venues. Like that's why the trilogy like brought the whole, they influenced Fiji and Baja and Australia. Those events never would have happened if those guys in the trilogy didn't start doing really epic down the line events and being like, and they didn't have all the top like PWA guys, but they had some really sick riders, and they were definitely a thorn in the side a little bit to a degree where it's like, okay, it's stealing our thunder a little bit. We got to like make sure that we're the top tour. So, and that's, O'Neill rolled up, and I didn't start doing the tour until that's what I saw. I'm like, I saw Fiji and stuff, and I'm like, my first real international PWA was Baja, because I'm like, this is, but then it was like, after that, it just disappeared. That was just kind of a
then you were doing the tour and it's like silt and
like, what happened to Fiji? What happened to Australia? Where'd all those places go? Baja.
But do you think, because like from hearsay, I know you were pretty good in Pozo and pretty actually, like, because it's not easy to learn another tack. It's not easy to learn another total style of sailing, but you were there. And you think because of all this psychological thing, you kind of underperformed towards your level of riding, let's say, or you just...
I think I did, out of all the Europe events, I felt like I performed my very best in Pozo. I never got like a podium, but I made like maybe the semifinals. But I definitely felt that place, just because it's kind of like a routine you can sail in, like kind of almost like in the Gorge, we'd sail these freestyle events and you'd kind of have a packaged heat, so that Pozo definitely had like a packaged heat, like a routine, and there's tons of wind. So you could pretty much execute it on replication over and over again. So I kind of like, and we sailed port tack in the Gorge, we were doing port tack jump. So I like Pozo in terms of the competing and the rush. Like I remember going full speed, doing like locked up tabletop forwards, completely overpowered, out of control. I never would have done that free sailing, like just so sketchy, And it's like, that's the kind of push that I liked from Pozo, where it's like you would do stuff that you never would have done. And Yeah. So I didn't feel it so much there. I didn't feel it for some reason. I feel it more. I felt it more at that time at like Hokiba, because then you're expected to do well. You're expected that, then you have the added pressure. But there, I didn't feel the added pressure. So I felt like for my actual level, I did fairly well.
Yeah.
In terms of bringing the best of my sailing to each heat.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think it's something you think of very much, no? The tour, the contests, all that. Like now, did you ever like...
No, I think it's cool. I mean, it's amazing.
No, I'm not saying like about the guys doing it now, but like about your chapter, let's say, you know, that we're... Just
not so much.
Yeah,
I do. I mean,
I wouldn't like,
but I look at everything in a very positive light. I'm like, not like, oh, I wish this happened or that. I'm like so grateful for my windsurfing career. It's like such a blessing. I just trip out like how many decades I got to get paid to do what I love and travel the world, and the people that I met, and there's times and the experiences. I mean, it's so humbling. It's so amazing. It was just such a huge gift for me. And I just, everything's a bonus at that. Like when I look back.
Yeah. Yeah. I did interrupt you though, because I asked you, did you have fun on tour? And then I interrupted you straight. And I saw that naughty little smirk.
But I mean, I had no idea what I was in for at all, like whatsoever. I mean, it was, whoa. I mean, I'm like, are we here to like play like rock music and like go party? And like, I mean, it just seemed like it was like a rock star status level. Like when you're in Maui, you're a wind kook. Everybody hates you at that time. You know, they're like throwing rocks at your car. You're like the scum of the earth. And then you roll up in Europe and like people are asking for your autographs in airports, just random places. You're like, what is going on? Like, this is trippy. It was just like, I'm like, yeah. And then like the party scene and how the brand managers would borderline force people to go party. I mean, like to get out of partying was difficult. So
yeah, I think you have to thank Josh Stone for that. No?
Yeah. He was like, he was the king of the Thunderdome.
Yeah.
No, but it wasn't just him. There was majority of all the people would rage hard. I don't remember really the Pritchards, like that guy. Those guys definitely didn't. Go figure. Kevin hit Kevin late. he hit it later on in life, but at that time, it was kind of like all like really. I mean, Jason didn't really occasional, but it was like even Bjorn and Vidar, those guys too. They would like, I mean, they were like smashing up bars and like it was crazy. I mean, and people would let people get away with stuff. You know, they just let them get away with it because
just rock star status. No, I think. Yeah. Okay. So that chapter's done, let's say. You get off tour and straight away into a pretty big endeavor. Like, did you always, of course, like as a movie grew up on VHSs and stuff, for sure you always wanted to do a movie, you know? But straight away going into, okay, we're going to make a movie about the sport. We're going to call it the Windsurfing Movie. Yeah. It's going to be the best movie made, highest freaking budget, you know, mainstream music. Yeah. That's a little tall,
well,
straight away.
Yeah, there was a lot of not a lot, but there was good films before, you know, like Rip and Jason's movies. So it's not like, you know, we like
no, for sure. But in 07, I just checked preparing now. I think there was a bit of a gap between I think the last big one.
So this thing has been brewing in me for a long time. I remember it started like. I grew up on the coattails of the generation, the guys 10 years older than me. And they were like diehard competitors. That's all, like, they were just like, you know, it's big money, you know, the window was there and they're pushing but for me, I like the filming and I was watching other sports and I like sort of like the medium of the film and the kind of the spirit of windsurfing coming out through film and like the energy and the music. And I'm like, and I remember telling the board meetings in Zilt, like, you guys, we need to focus more on like the media side to portray like the, and you know, they would here and there, but it was like just all results, content.
Sounds like me in the board meeting, like every year.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I fell on deaf ears. I'm like, da-da-da. But like one thing I had a disadvantage, like not going to Europe, like not having a coach and like prepping you with the conditions. But I had a huge advantage with filming because my dad would film me almost every session. So I was like going home and studying the footage and filming and filming and filming. And back then that was not really popular. Like people would just sail and it was just like you'd end up maybe in a video segment. So I was like always kind of on that mindset for a very long time. And then all those big like Mac Dog production films came out and I'm like, we have to do this in windsurfing. But it just the timing wasn't there. And we were kind of like doing the tour. And then I met Johnny DeCesare from Poor Boys, and he was doing the same thing Mac Dog was, but in skiing. And I feel like if it was a snowboard, they would have been like, they're kind of like surfing. They would have been like, you know, whatever. But I think that because he was skiing and he knew about windsurfing, I think he windsurfed too a little bit. His mind was open and he was like, yeah, let's do this. Let's do something in windsurfing. Like, let's replicate what these guys are doing and do like, you know, shoot 16 millimeter and all that stuff. But at that time he was like making ski films and he had crazy obligations, and he contacted Jace. And then we kind of had this trifecta between us three to try to manage it. But it didn't start to cut. Like, then I was like doing the tour, and back to the whole tour thing where it's like, I left the PWA tour. I think I was like maybe 27 years old. I mean, mostly guys retire at, you know, way later.
Close
in
to
their
40,
30s.
yeah.
Yeah.
Late
like,
30s, yeah.
I quit at like 27. And it was a pivotal moment. I remember I was in Gran Canaria, and I think it was that time when Cowley and Victor were like, remember, they were just like back and forth, they were just like on this another level, and they were just doing doubles. And I remember I went back to my apartment complex just demoralized. And I'm like, and I just had this kind of thought to myself. I'm like, if you want to get that good, you're going to have to make like crazy sacrifices, and you're going to have to, this is going to have to be like a big part of your life. Or you can just bail and do what you always wanted to do, what you've been dreaming of doing. And that's just go travel the world, make these films. And I just said, okay, I'm going to do it. And I just had to work out the sponsor arrangements. I had to line, and it was like a little bit of a process, but I had to line. And I remember, like, for instance, like Sven, he's like, no, you know, don't leave the tour. I'll give you $100,000 if you win, you know, or something crazy. I'm like, no, man, I'm out. I'm going to do this. Yeah. Got on the Quattro, those guys, but I was fortunate. I'm not saying that. Yeah,
but a lot of the film you're on starboard still, no?
Yeah, 2007. But then then it was transition out of it, and then, you know, Quattro and but it basically was like got to the point where and that's another interesting thing. When I was on the tour, you know, it was like had good sponsors and stuff, but I think I was the only one in the history of windsurfing that when I left the tour, everything got better. Like, my sponsors, you know, the budgets, everything went up. As soon as I left the tour, everything got better for me. And I was lucky because I had the Oxbow Red Bull. So those guys were like, yeah, well, we get this. You know, they have athletes that do these kind of things all the time, and they get the whole image aspect of it. And especially like Oxbow. I mean, Red Bull too, but Oxbow is just like, they were like the most amazing sponsor ever. And yeah, we just did that. And I think that was the single most the best move I ever made in my career was doing that transition.
And then '07, like, I guess once you made up your mind, '07 was also, like, coincidentally probably your best year on tour, wasn't it?
yeah, exactly.
So,
yeah.
we'll talk about like a relief, no?
Well, then I'm like, okay, I'm going to give it one last go. And I remember I just got these, like, I'm like, okay, my head is just like not right. I didn't really like my sailing. I just got to figure out like how to like be a fighter, you know? So like, I'm going to do the tour with Josh Angulo. Like, I'm going to travel with him. I'm going to go right to the belly of the beast, you know, the most ruthless competitor. I mean, in a good way. But I was listening to a lot of psychological sport DVDs, and I just like learned about like how to be mentally tough and to fight through heats, and not, you know, you don't have to like sail amazing to win a heat. You can just, you know, you just got to have that fighter instinct to the very end and bring it, you know, like not give up and just keep fighting through heat. So yeah, that was a good year.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. So the Windsurfing movie, take me into like a little nitty gritty, like you said, line up the sponsors, line up the money. I mean, that budget was huge for windsurfing standards. You know, you have freaking Rolling Stones on the soundtrack, Amy Winehouse, Foo Fighters, you know, like all just that music part. But then, you know, the locations and all the, you know, it's a huge project. So how does it even start? You know, like you're basically the producer of it. So you line up everything, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was, I think Johnny was actually like kind of getting the funding from skiing in the very beginning. We were like, which we, you know, it came back because we had so many skiers come out and stay with us. But yeah, so it was basically, you know, back then there was no internet, there's internet, but there's no social media, there's nothing. So you can go into hiding and you could start brewing something up and work on it. And, you know, there's the anticipation. But we knew like the music back then. I mean, the music accessibility today is amazing. Back then it was, you know, these bands were huge, the record labels and the publishing. It was like, and it was really difficult to get that music. We played, I think, Jack Black, you know, the actor Jack Black.
Yeah.
So he wanted
School
Led
of Rock
Zeppelin
and stuff.
Yeah, he wanted Led Zeppelin in School of Rock. So he did this like fanboy video and just told them how much he loves their music and just so we're like, let's do it. Let's like all of us interview each other and just talk about what the band means to us and how we're just like an indie, you know, company just trying to, you know, bring a passion across. And it worked. Like,
no way.
It worked.
So you want to tell me you got the Rolling Stones for free?
No, we never got any. You don't get things for free, but I mean, for them, it's free, you know, like for what they were charging us, you know, like compared to what they would charge a company that had budget. You know, if you're a bigger company, people see you got the money, but for us, they just basically, I don't know, there's, you know, it's thousands, but not crazy. And so we just kept replicating that. And then we're like, got the Who, we got the Rolling Stones. I mean, it was just like down the line. We were like, we couldn't believe it. Could not believe that we were getting this music. And
then there's so like you say, it's probably brewing and probably news comes out, like, right? Like Levi's up to something with the Poor Boys and, you know.
Well,
and it's
yeah,
like,
people were seeing it. They were seeing us filming and they knew Johnny and but then it was, you know, we did like a couple seasons, like maybe 2 or 3. I mean, once we were like filming, because we went to Cape Verde and Morocco. I mean, we're all like, and then the editing process was like a long duration because we were like cutting down what kind of film. We kind of knew to a degree what kind of film we needed, but we wanted to make the film where people that didn't windsurf could watch it and get like a real good context to like what the sport is, where it came from, and contrast the riding today from how like, you know, like the pioneers and where they were. So we just definitely like did a lot of archive digging to find like that footage and, you know, lot of people were sitting on gold that we didn't know about. So we had to like dig all that. But it was a cool process. We had good editors and.
Yeah. But what I'm getting at is like, it's been a while since a big movie and whatever. So probably everybody wants to be in it, no? It's like, Levi, can I? Yeah. I'll be the guy carrying the board, you know, like.
Yeah. That's so hard, you know, like you want everybody to be in it, but at the same time you have so much pressure. I mean, the things like on thin ice, it could easily not happen. So, and we had incredible sponsors that were backing it. So it's like you have Red Bull and Oxbow. I mean, what do you think you're gonna put the Red Bull Oxbow crew in there? I mean, not only are they insane windsurfers and a huge part of the history, but you know, it helps the whole production side of it. So, you know, but we did stuff like we featured Mark Angulo in the second one, and that wasn't necessarily like coming from the sponsors and the backing. It was just, we thought we couldn't do what we were doing without having Mark Angulo in the film, just because he's so pivotal and like wave sailing and what we love. It's like, it would feel wrong not to have him in there. And he's got they bring so much innovation to the platform. So
yeah. How's it for you? Like, you're basically producing the movie, getting, you know, probably on the phone and on emails and stuff, like trying to secure the budget. And then once that thing is done, which sounds like the hard part, then you got to go out and perform. I mean, you got to perform like it's a freaking contest or worse sometimes, because you got to probably, in your mind, you're thinking, I got to do something that hasn't been filmed or hasn't, you know what I mean? You want to step it up, right?
You got to step it up. And I wasn't necessarily part of the like working the budget because I was being funded from my sponsors. So I said, you know, Johnny and Jace were like, they needed to be assisted with living and, you know, life and everything. So they were the ones that were managing the budget side because they're filming, you know, and they did all that stuff in terms of working that out. And then I was just help facilitating and bringing, you know, the elements together. And I mean, it was a team effort. We're all working together to make it happen. But yeah, I definitely had a lot of pressure. But the pressure there, I loved. I thrived off of that. I would eat that for breakfast. I like when it was pumping in Marshall Islands or whatever. And we only had that's the arena where I excel was the filming part. I just loved it. I loved the aspect that it's like, once you bang a big move out, like move on, go to the next one. You don't know if it's going to be windy the next day and all that stuff. So that pressure was the stuff that I would live for. And I felt like that brought out the best in my sailing because it was the place that felt the most comfortable for me. So I was just able to kind of like bring out the performances that I dreamed of doing. And yeah. I just wish I could have done that in contests, especially in the I remember like Victor telling me, he's like, dude, just go sail. I just like come in from maybe a Hito's bomb. Just like go sail. It's like so easy for him. Just go sail.
Yeah. So you mentioned it got better. Like I would imagine after that first, because it's like you were the golden little poster child, you know, on the like F2 Maui Project. And that time, you know, there was hype, let's say. Yeah. Then you go on tour and like you say, it's not all roses and whatever. And then the Windsurfing movie, I don't want to say happens because it didn't just happen. You freaking manufactured it. And so then probably things changed, right? Was it for the second one, was it like red carpet?
No, they wanted it. Red Bull's like, let's do it. Oxbow's, let's do it. Like it was
because the first one was a huge success, right?
Yeah, I don't know. The second one was like, you know, it was set up. They were like definitely wanting it. You know, they love the premieres, having big premieres at the Red Bull and like in Europe, and it was. I mean, it took, you know, work, of course, but it was a lot more enjoyable in terms of people believed us now, you know, like,
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta, and the second one is really like, that's like a freaking windsurfer wet dream, no? Like
the second one was the most fun I've ever had in my life. Like, we're just going around like to all the spots and just trying to score as hard as we could.
Yeah.
It was the dream tour, but without contests.
And in many ways, I don't know, like for us here in, you know, North Europe and stuff, I think around that second one, it's like you sort of seem to step to another level. You know, you embrace the multi-fin, the quads, you know, like drawing different lines and more power, you know. And was that like, did it just happen naturally? Because it's only 3 years between the premiere of the first one to the premiere of the second one. But it just seems like it's almost different windsurfing, you know, and the level of windsurfing on the second one, and the style and the, you know, did you like decide?
You can feel when I watch the movie, I can feel the energy in the riding, because, you know, we were coming from the older boards, and then when we jumped on, or when we started to move into these new era of gear, you can just see just the energy level of the riding. Like if you go to California, that California segment, you can just see like how mushy and small the waves were. But like the stuff we were able to do in that, like shore break is just like, I mean, don't get me wrong, like single fins are sick, like watch Chuck Angulo sail, it's amazing. But you know, especially those conditions, I mean, it was just incredible. It was just like taking chains off your ankles, you know, just, so the energy was, I think we were completely vibing hard off of that energy with the gear innovation, with the filming, and just having the backing of all the people, you know, on that one. So. Yeah,
but did it happen like naturally, like it just progressed off of, I don't know, Kauli using a twin in Cabo Verde, and then all this? I don't know. I just wonder, like, how do you okay, I'm gonna like be the most stylish, hardest ripping freaking, and I'm making a huge movie at the same time. I don't know. I think for us here, it's like that was, I don't know. I remember every time you dropped a little, you know, a little part or what. I don't remember what it was back then. I guess it was YouTube, no? That time already.
I don't know, man. What was it?
Yeah. And we were like, fuck, did you see that turn? Did you see that? Like, fuck, he's throwing more spray off the bottom than you know, than we used to like 3 years earlier off the top, you know, and it's like, it's just, yeah, I don't know. I just wonder how you remember that time, you know?
I mean, I definitely was, I knew that I felt like I was maybe offsetting like the struggles that I had. But I knew I knew I wanted to be like an incredible windsurfer. I wanted to make a mark on the sport, and I felt like I couldn't quite get to where I wanted to be on the tour. So I felt like once we moved into that era and the whole gear innovation and stuff, that's where I felt like I just lining up with the Quattro and all these guys, and the boards had such an advantage with the boards, you know, Keith shaping these boards. It's like, in terms of down the line windsurfing, I mean, most of all the guys were coming in here getting his boards and spraying them with the other company graphics. So, but I was like able to get so many of them. And then I was filming a lot too. So you're getting all these boards, and you're getting filmed a lot, and you're reviewing the footage, and you're like removing the things you don't like in your sailing, and trying to like emphasize the things that do look good. So it's just like a process. And we're still doing that today. Like Rosino and everybody were like working on our boards and filming. And it's like, I know that we're still scratching the surface of like how technical you can ride a wave windsurfing. And it's just, we're allowed to do it to the extent of what we feel is normal, but also to what the gear allows us to do in a lot of ways.
But I don't know if you agree. It's very hard to imagine now an acceleration of like it happened, let's say from when you were filming the first movie to when you were filming the second. So like, let's say from, I don't know, 05 till 09 or whatever, you know, like in terms of how just the lines change and everything, like how everything was flowing and how many moves you were able to link and how many, you know, I cannot imagine. I think people don't really, maybe it's also because it was the time that I was getting into, you know, like more aware windsurfing, let's say, or whatever.
Yeah.
But I remember that time very vividly, you know, where I felt like just every month it was progressing. So
it was a cool run.
Yeah. Let's stay there then. A little philosophical. How do you define style?
What do you mean by that? No. Sorry,
like what does it take to be a stylish windsurfer, you know? Because it's so hard to.
Well, I mean, I have a theory on it, but it's like, you know, Rodney Mullen was like, he just broke down the mechanics of skateboarding in terms of like, he just felt like a lot of it was just the arrangements of how the skateboard would move with his feet and stuff. And he just used replications. Like, it's almost like math equations. So you go up there for hours and hours and hours and try to, you know, arrange like different rotations with the board and stuff. But I mean, that goes back to the filming as well as like reviewing the footage. But I think, as cheesy as this sounds, I think that really great wave sailing is a form of the dance. Because if you look at people dance, their athletic ability and just their continuity of movements, everything is so fluid. There's like, they're integrating their strength in the dance, but they're also their flexibility and just their limberness of being able to gel everything together without like over-emphasizing one technique over the other, where it's like you want to disguise like the techniques, like sliding the hand back or things like that. You don't want to overemphasize where you're watching it and that's what you're seeing. You're just seeing all the techniques. You kind of want to blanket those techniques through the movements where it's like they're kind of gelling together. And I think that's with the filming. You can see it in the filming. When I do my camps and stuff, I'm like, these are the little technique things that you have to get like second nature, where it's like, get so good at them, it's integrated in your subconscious where you're not thinking about it anymore. It's like just there. So I just feel like, I just think that fluidness, like when I watch people, like, it is a dance. There's a rhythm, there's the techniques, there's the pacing. You don't want to like outpace the wave. But it's an incredible thing because you never feel like you're ever, at least I never feel like I'm ever where I want to be, because it's just so difficult. It's just so difficult. Even your best wave, you caught a little rail or it just wasn't quite perfect. I mean, sometimes you have something and be like, okay, I feel like I did that to the best that I could have done it. But most of the time it's not like that. You're like, oh, I started the wave good and I finished not the way I wanted to. So it's super addictive.
Yeah. And where I wonder, because when somebody like myself goes sailing, I get hyped up to videos of, I don't know, you guys or whatever, you know. I wonder, when you're on that forefront, let's say, where do you draw inspiration? Because it's not like, you know, like you go out and it's not like you're gonna replicate anyone, because nobody's done what you're about to do or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, how do you, like.
I mean, I think of it like.
Where you draw inspiration is really cheesy.
I think it's cheesy in terms of like, I'm talking about how the fluidness of how the mechanics of it, in terms of like how to like have the fluid continuity of your movements, like be complete without being overly mechanical, and like the rhythm and stuff. You don't want to be over amped, because then you're going to miss the pacing of the wave. So there's a rhythm to wave sailing. There's a rhythm to everything when you're on the water, just like any sports. But I think that it's definitely something that, you know, you just have to do over and over and over until you kind of click into that gear and get it wired. But
Yeah. I didn't expect you to have like a straight up answer for that, because it's so hard to even put in words. No, I don't know. It's like,
but I'm not like, it's a good question. It's like, how do you get better? I mean, I feel like I kind of been hitting the roof where I want to get so hard. It gets more difficult to get better, you know, but
yeah.
I think with the gear and with the boards, you know, you can definitely push it. But something that did pop in my head is like, it's your perception is a lot to do with how well you can get, or how like what level you can get at. Because if you think about it, it's like in snowboarding in the early 2000s, you have like full grown men just doing 720s, thinking that they are pushing the sport and that this is the most incredible time. Like this is huge. They're like breaking the glass ceiling, you know, 15, 20 years later, little kids are doing that. Like no problem. Like a 10-year-old's doing it. It's just a perception thing. I mean, there's a point where the body will blow out. Like, you know, you go too big and it's just the physics are going to collapse. But the perception, I do think about that. I'm like, I think that's a perception thing. It's like they could have, and it's interesting that it takes someone to be like, no, this is not only possible, but this is normal. Once it's normal, then it's like it's accepted by everybody else's like subconscious. Like that's just the normal thing to do. And then you could like, I don't think something it really hits home until it's normal. It's like when Mark Angulo was doing when we were interviewing him, he's like, people were dogging on him in the beginning because they were just like, you're wasting your sessions and you're wasting waves. But then, you know, now it's like so standard moves that he worked years on. It's like, yeah. And then there's still winning contests today. It's just amazing.
Yeah. No, you watch a Hokipa contest and it's basically an Airtaka like which is basically an offspring of a goiter. You know, so it is funny. What is it for you these days then? Because there is a glass ceiling and there is, you know, so what is it? Is it like just, I'm going to go out and do this one move, I'm going to flow, or I'm going to do this turn, or I'm going to try this board? Like what, there needs to be little things, right? Oh, there always, yeah. Like I think it was last year, I'm like, I'm not going to do any turns anymore. I'm just going to do everything. I'm going to just I'm going to do everything above the lip. And I think I sailed like that. And it's so, adrenalizing. Like it gets you amped. Like you don't turn, just project off everything and rotate off everything. So that lasted about 2 months before I got hurt. And then I'm just like, okay, this is like too stressful to try to windsurf like this. Yeah. And then lately I feel like just working on more top to bottom windsurfing, like more of a vertical approach, like trying to bring a little bit more of what was in the past in terms of like being able to not like streamline the wave, but being able to commit like completely to the section to the point where it's like you're in that pressure chamber where you're like going up the face of the wave, looking at the lip, and you're underneath it, and just try to like be there. Don't like want to get out of that spot, you know, just go straight up at it and just like trying to put yourself in the pocket in a more critical way. And Keith's been making some boards like these, like this one he made me. It was like actually like it was the V kind of creeped up before the fins, and it was like not necessarily like a purposeful thing, but it was an accident that was amazing. And then Tylee's like, no, that's like our callas that are good on, they have that in front of the fins. That's what helps you go vertical. So it's just like an accident that just happened to be. Yeah. So just like it's funny like because you can see it like, I don't know, your last edit, I think, or second last or whatever. Like it's, you bottom turn and you're almost getting backwinded going vertical. Yeah. So it's well, that's the board too, is like, it's starting to thrive in that. Yeah. It wants to do that. So that's why it's like fun to be able to work on the gear. And I feel like as we improve the gear and our perception of what can be done with weight talent as well. Yeah. Speaking of boards, and because you say that like this, I get this feeling like, and I read something where you said like quads do one thing, well, and then thruster does other things well, and then I love the single fins for that and whatever. So what's your like latest take on this? Like
I kind of have these like where I just get kind of
phases,
like,
right?
I get like unsatisfied and I start jumping around on other stuff just to see if I can feel that satisfaction that I'm looking for. And like I'll go thruster or play sometimes around with single fins again. But yeah, I mean, ultimately I feel like in terms of the most innovation, I think the quad with the boards, I can't seem to find the thruster setup that I like. I mean, I like the thruster, but if you look, a lot of guys that ride the thruster, I mean, a lot of the guys that are using them on the tour, they're really small guys. They're like really lightweight. I don't know if that's something to do with it because they're probably riding really small back fins. So they're essentially kind of getting that quad effect where they're kind of drifting the tail a little bit more. But if you're bigger, you're going to ride a bigger single fin.
And then
the
get
thruster
stiff,
set,
right?
It starts locking up. You don't get that side drift that the quad has where it's so for sure quad is like my daily board that I ride or my setup that I ride just because I mean the PO fin, the was it the KS fins or the longer skinny ones with those things that's just like the most incredible piece of equipment made. Like those fins are incredible. Like it just doesn't seem like they should work the way they do in terms of like hold and also pivot and drive. And yeah, they're a freak of nature, those fins.
Yeah. But you did say in that same interview, like that you encouraged Polakau to go back on his single fin because you reckon he looked best on his single fin. And there is something.
When did I say that? When did I say that?
I don't know. Maybe. Some interview. I would agree though. Like I don't know if I watch About Time from Polakau, it's like there's just so much speed, and I know how. I can only imagine. I don't know. I can only imagine how hard it was on those single fins to like slalom down the line, do a freaking massive long bottom turn, and then time it perfectly. You know, but from those movies. It seems like he was doing it over and over again, right? So
he was though. I mean, if you look at the board, I mean, I've tried to go back to single fin, and I think the biggest dilemma with going back to single fin after being so accommodated with the boards that we ride now is that you want the extra fin to come from the rail of the board in terms of you need the hold to come from the rail because you got the big deep single fin that's tracking a turn, but you need to ask more out of the rail line and the thinner rails and the more narrow board because you need to be able to sink it in the water. So I don't know if the single fin does. It seems like it's a negative. It almost has less hold sometimes when I ride it on a shorter, fuller rail board. It's like I'm not getting deep into the turn. Where if you look at
it's either stiff or it doesn't hold at all, yeah?
Yeah. So if you look at the boards he was riding, they were a lot longer and narrower, and his stance too was narrower. I mean, he probably a little bit narrower stance, longer board, crazy thin rails, super thin tail. So it's like to ride a board like that, you're not going to go, 10 miles an hour and do a pivot turn and you're going to haul ass balls to the wall. That's how that thing wants to ride. You're going to have to get it going fast and you have to ride off the front foot. So I think is a combination of the gear.
And then any mini chop you catch rail or I mean, you have to go super fast not to catch or I don't know. It's just,
I don't know. But that's the thing. It's like maybe we're better at windsurfing back then because we were forced to do stuff that, it's like that was more difficult. Like it's so easy now. I mean, to a degree, everybody like the quad, you always feel like you're ripping, even if you're not ripping. The single fin, you don't feel like you're ripping. You have to rip to get that. Like you have to full speed. You have to commit to the type of riding.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Different. Let's go back a little bit. Windsurfing Movie 1, Windsurfing Movie 2, Waterman Experience, Walls of Perception. That's like, I don't know, 7 years of making movies. It's like back to back to back to back.
Yeah.
And now we're finding ourselves in an era where you're probably filming stuff with, you know, way better cameras than we used to or whatever. And then we're putting it on Instagram to watch on our like little 9-inch screens or whatever.
Like, it was the end of an era, you know, like I think that was the end of an era. Like no one's, you know, the budgets started shrinking in the marketing companies with Red Bull, like for films, like you could start seeing them start to shrink as social media started to grow. You know, everybody's changing the way that people are consuming content and all that. And, but then it was cool in a lot of ways just because people were having access to so much content that was being done. But yeah, I think that was probably the end of like the big marketing budget era. I know Oxbow they tried to get into the American clothing industry, and they kind of like, it was during that bubble, the bubble that popped in the clothing and apparel industry. And, you know, they went almost belly up. At least they had to go back and keep it more centralized in France. And then, yeah, just everything was changing. So, and at that time, that was probably like 2010. When did social media really kick gears? Like 2000. Yeah. I feel like Facebook was like 2010 or something. And then Instagram was way later.
Yeah, Instagram was later for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. Facebook. I graduated high school in 2010. So that was Facebook was,
you know what I mean? When it was like, people were using it. Red Bull signed me up for Facebook. They're like, here, like made my profile. I'm like, what's this? It's like, yeah, here.
It's a new thing.
Yeah, it's a new thing. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, I had no idea what was about to happen.
Yeah.
The monster.
What do you think? Like if Windsurfing Movie 3 was to be made, would it have to be like behind the scenes of Levi in freaking 30 episodes for Facebook Watch or what?
Yeah. Like break it into pieces.
Like
just make it like a TV series. I mean, people are so desensitized. I mean, the saturation today, it was different back then. People anticipated featured films. You know, they didn't have as much content. And,
yeah, but there's still content that you get psyched to see. You know, you see a teaser and you're like, fuck, I really need to see this. And maybe sometimes it's not a $1 billion Hollywood production.
Yeah,
you know, it might be something more organic, let's say, or whatever. So
yeah,
so there is room.
It would have to do something in a way where it would be. I mean, people have seen amazing windsurf, and there's not like you're not going to do something incredibly awesome to blow, you know, like to have something worthy to do a third film on just windsurfing. You know, there's going to have to be some other elements in there, some other story stuff that would justify doing a third film. So,
like the ultimate windsurfer.
Yeah. Oh man. So
I don't know.
crazy.
We don't have it in Europe. For people listening, there's this show because I think a lot of windsurfers are not so tuned into the surfing world, but there's this show.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
There's basically it's basically a reality show with surfing, and there's like legit surfers in there. It's not like
that's terrible. It's so terrible. I can't. It's like my wife is watching this show. It's so bad. It's called what's it called? Byron Bay on Netflix, and I'm just like, dude, I just feel like my brain is just getting ninja kicked watching these people talk about their lives, and just like, how do you watch this? I just can't do it.
Yeah,
but
I think there's something.
She's funny. Yeah. She's like, oh, the clothes are nice, you know. I'm like, oh, but these people are ridiculous. It's like that whole reality TV thing is just insane.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said or to be found for new windsurfing content. I don't know, like there's so many sports documentaries and there's so many. I think it just shifted and we didn't collectively figure it out as a sport. I don't know. There's
I mean, I kind of felt like I was hoping that the Robbie Nash one would have been sort of like how they did the Michael Jordan one in terms of like his pivotal competing moments and, you know, the impact of, and I don't think he wanted to do like a retrospect thing so much. He wanted to keep it kind of current. And personally, I felt like it would have been super interesting to really touch on the psychology of those times, like how Michael Jordan did it in his series, because so I think, yeah, there is room for that kind of stuff in our sport, but it's coming from a place where a lot of those interesting documentaries, people are removed enough from it that they feel comfortable talking about some personal aspects of their lives, which is the most interesting aspect. It's sometimes the most uncomfortable stuff is what people, and for younger athletes, they just want to be perceived as, you know, they have their sponsors, so they have things to lose. You're never going to get that stuff out of it. So I think the documentary thing in windsurfing, there's fully room for the documentary aspect for sure.
Yeah. So one retired guy you would like to see a documentary on, but like tell all, no, you know, no BS, no hiding.
Mark Angulo, I think it would be an incredible film. Yeah. Incredible. I mean, his stories and I think it'd be, and it's full of just, you know, at the top of the peak of the summit, epic, and then just dark in the valley, and just like these extremes that make incredible stories, you know, coming back out into the light and stuff like that is what I think it's what people yearn to watch, because they connect with that in their own lives. But
yeah, it needs to be relatable.
It's relatable, but it's more of an extreme position where it's like, wow, it can be like that's inspiring. So I think a Mark Angulo documentary would be awesome.
Yeah. So being already on those names and stuff, your top 5 windsurfers of all time.
Yeah. I like to admire different parts of everybody's sailing and their different styles. It's hard to really.
Okay, so what'd you steal? What would you steal if you could have 5 guys, one ability each, or one skill, or one turn, or one move, or what'd you steal?
I would still. I would steal Brazinho's ace card, because no matter what the deck is, he can sail good anywhere. So it's like he can pull out that ace card and he just knows every move in any conditions.
It's insane.
So it's just like, no matter where you go, he's going to be riding at at his very best. He's just put so much time. He's talented, and he's got it so locked down. Like, and Ricardo's got that too. I mean, I feel like since he's been living on Maui, he's got that element that Brazinho's tapped into, where they're just so strong, you know, so versatile. I don't know. It's a hard one. You know, like I sometimes burn his goiters. Like, I mean, I can do goiters. I can do what he does with goiters. I can do that with 360s. Like, I can just everybody has a move where they can just pull it out anywhere. It's just something that's so natural for them. They don't have to struggle through. It's almost like they can just naturally do that. And I would pull his goiter, because I feel like I've seen him do goiters where it's was not a goiter section whatsoever. It was like a closeout, and he lands in the flats, on a closeout in front of the wave, stuff like, there's so many guys. I feel like I'm the bridge between the two generations. So I kind of watched the generation before, but I'm young enough and I'm old enough where I got to sail with everybody. But I feel like I'm more inspired by the guys today, because I feel like they love windsurfing, no strings attached. They will windsurf no matter what the circumstances are. They're just going to keep windsurfing. But yeah, I mean, little things like Graham, he's definitely got the power. And then, Morgan's his rhythm and his wave knowledge. He has a very good understanding of lineups and how always making sure to do the right thing at the right place in the wave. That's what competitively, it's such a good advantage to do that. he's done really well in the events with that. My brother's huge. Like, I don't think I would be here without Luke. And I don't know. There's so many guys like Gulos, you know.
A lot of Maui boys in there. Like, What's your take? What's your take on this whole? I don't know. It's not.
But I watch Traversa too. Traversa, I watch his stuff because it's just insane. Like the big hits and like
the picture lately. Like,
man,
yeah. I don't know.
And I remember watching Musso in not Canaries. What's the other spot where he is?
Tenerife. Yeah.
Just the way he just like he skateboards the wave, you know, and like and how good he's done with not doing double loops. I mean, it just shows you how excellent of an athlete he is. Like how amazing of a sailor to have done so well without doing doubles. You're like, wow. I'm like, dude, just do a double and you just win, no problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's so many. I mean,
yeah.
I guess I just inspired by the people I ride with a lot.
Yeah. He said Musso said that he had like a really bad when he was going to your mom to your parents' school, that you guys went jumping and he just landed a double through the sail and like basically passed out and whatever. That he had like a very bad experience. And so
with the doubles, I could see. I mean, I think some other guys have had that too, but
yeah. But anyway, so you mentioned a lot of Maui guys, and it's not official. It's not written anywhere, but there is a little bit of like the European guys come to Maui, and at first they suck always. There's no two ways about it. You know, nobody goes out and Hokipa and rips straight away. And then the European guys are like, you guys are so cool. Come to contests and do well. And I mean, nobody says it that way, but there is an energy, right? So what's your take on that? And the Cabo Verde contest happened, and there was a lot of that too, you know, like comparing Cabo Verde to Hokipa and this and that. So
I think there used to be a lot more of it, but I think there's like, you know, like there's people like that live in Europe that come to Maui and they click in pretty quickly and sail really well. I just think it's just we're so fortunate to get so many days out here that there's sometimes an advantage in terms of just the quantity of sailing. It's not like an easy wave either. It's like choppy and closes out a lot. So it just forces you to like, you can't have to have a really good board. Otherwise it really exposes you quickly if you don't have something that's really working. But you know, that's like that in Pozo too, though. I mean, that energy too, it's like very intimidating, you know, like look at Philip and Victor. I mean, those guys are beasts out there. I mean, they've sailed it so much. It's just, I mean, it's remarkable that the guys like Brazinho and Ricardo have been able to, you know, do so well in that environment. So there's a similar effect in Pozo as there is in Maui. I don't
even mean like the sailing itself or the results or whatever. I mean, like,
just the attitude.
Just the attitude. Yeah. Like what's your take? Because there is that. Let's not like say there isn't, right? I mean,
I think that's an island mentality too, because it's kind of like a tourist place where, you know, it's just constantly the psychology of people coming and going. And it's just like, I feel like there's a sort of a localism kind of mentality that can happen, where, you know, you're there and there's 10 guys and then all of a sudden it's spring break and, you know, April and, you know, you got 10 photo shoots happening. And it's just like, it's like one huge jumbo jet showed up at Kahului and it's just like the lineup's just like stacked all of a sudden. So it's like yesterday there's no one and today it's just the reality of like just maybe island culture too.
Yeah. Outside of Maui, you did all the traveling for all those movies and just trips also and whatever. What's like your top few waves that you windsurfed? That you remember, like amazing sessions and Well, if you had to rank, like give us the top 5.
Well, I think the top 5 trips would definitely be my top favorite places to windsurf would be Cape Verde. I love Baja. Morocco. The session we had in Morocco was insane.
For the first windsurfing movie, you mean?
Yeah. And then the Marshall Islands, just because, we were able to actually ride windsurf waves that have never been windsurfed before for the first time. So it's just like kind of the feeling of, pioneering a spot. And yeah, that was cool. So those would probably be out. And then backyards is brutal. That's like it. You feel like you got your game together. You feel like you're the man. Then you go there and get so humbled. You're like turning down lips and going around sections, but it's next level windsurfing backyards.
Traversa told me that he's not really like interested in chasing waves around the Pacific because there's so much good stuff around the Atlantic that he still has to kind of, explore and whatever. What's your like top 5 that you'd like to go to still? Yeah.
I think what he's doing is he's totally redefining what windsurfing is in Europe. I mean, I am blown away by the amount of incredible conditions he's getting. And yeah, he's right about that. There's a lot more than what people are perceiving is good.
We dream, Tahiti, Fiji. That's the classic,
but you don't need to. You got Cape Verde right there. Look at Portugal. Like, look at the stuff that he's been able to ride in Portugal. I mean, it's incredible. So
I'm not sure if anybody else can ride that though.
Yeah, but I'm sure it breaks on like logo to mast days. Like, I'm sure there's days where it's not double mast.
Yeah,
but it definitely looks like the conditions that I would love to windsurf. Like what he's doing in Europe for sure. I'm like, where was that when I was going there all the time? I'm like sailing Zilt and like 5-0
even Gincho, right? There's no wind on the inside, logo high.
Just fun and shit.
Yeah, side on. Yeah. So no bucket list, huh? No, like places. That
I want to go back to Baja. I know it sounds so boring, but it's just so nice there. It's just that wave when on a good swell, it's just so fun. It's the trestles of windsurfing. Yeah. The way the wave sets up and Cape Verde too. Like Cape Verde, like on a big forecast, like on a good forecast, like Punta Preta. It's just a shame they didn't get it quite. They made it happen and it was awesome, but it would have been so cool if they would have gotten a big swell at Punta Preta.
Yeah,
it would have been incredible.
Yeah. When you watched that contest, what did you see? Because I think it needed.
I saw. I'm like so happy I didn't go. No, I mean, the guys, they did incredible for what they had. Like they sailed so well, and it just looked like so sketchy. Like you see so many waves with the rocks. They're like, it's almost not even rideable. Like the rocks popping up in the flats, and it was just pretty challenging. It looked like, but
like the riding itself, because I mean, the last contest was what, 2009 or 2010, maybe 2009, I think. Still with like, longer, thinner boards and still.
Yeah. But I don't think they, like for instance, I felt like Bant was showing us what, in terms of, because he got some of the set waves that were pushing far. You got to get it has to push back off the point where you really lay into those sections. Because otherwise when it gets too small and it's like it's like it's a freight train. So you're not able to actually like really lay into the line like you are. I think like, when it does push back, you can start seeing what can go down. So I envision, I'm like, if I go, I'm going to be sitting there and it's going to be like, I'm going to be in heat with like Camille and Traversa, and they're going to be hydroplaning around, and I'm going to be sitting at the point going like, with like no wind, waiting for like a head high wave. I just had that in my mind.
And you were right. You were definitely right. It looked like no country for over 80 kilo people.
Yeah. I mean, that's what was like so incredible how Brazino, I felt like he performed so well because, like, you know, he is such a disadvantage being a bit bigger. But I don't think it was too light, but some heats were light. But definitely, you know, he was able to handle himself against those light guys. And
but no matter, I wonder what's your take on this, because it looked like no matter how the wind, even if you get on the waves with the bigger boards, you just don't fit when the wave is small.
It's so small. The waves, like it's almost like you can't even turn sometimes. It's almost better to just do a big aerial or a maneuver because the board won't even fit in. You can't even do the apex of the turn, really, in some parts of the wave. But I saw some good turns. They were able on, but I think it was just far in between because there wasn't a lot of good sets.
Yeah. Yeah. And then sometimes probably it's easier to do an aerial than risk doing a turn and the section just running away, you know? And so why would you do that if you have maybe 3 opportunities in the heat, you know?
So much easier to get the score by just doing big aerials and a rotation or something.
Yeah. So you got a little, I want to.
Yeah, no, that place, I mean, I think they need to go back and go give it another go on. Hopefully we get like a sick forecast. Would be unreal to see that pop off.
Yeah. Okay. Not to like be mean or whatever, but you're 41. What's next? Like, you're working with your sponsors, creating content and doing stuff, windsurfing probably every day.
Yeah, still windsurfing every day. This is like my world now. Like, so in the marketing and product videos and everything for KT Surfing and Goya and Quattro. So it's pretty cool, like how they've been able to integrate me into the programs here and like help, you know, like be part of the company and that way. So I'm enjoying it because I've always been into the film side and I love marketing. I love the whole storytelling and everything. So, you know, it's cool because it's like we work, all the guys in the factory here, like Adam Lewis and Paul and Keith and Pio and everybody, they work hard, but then they go sail after. And it's a way, this place is so creative. Like, people are always coming up with new ways, you know, new gear, new stuff. And for me, it's very natural. I enjoy doing what I'm doing now. I don't necessarily miss being like a pro windsurfer or a pro athlete. I felt like I got to enjoy such an amazing run, you know, where I'm like happy that I'm not in that world so much and in that context so much. I like to be part of the brand and in the creativity process, but working on the designs parts things.
Yeah, you sound really at peace. Like, you know, I ask you your bucket list waves, and you're like, don't give any, and you know what I mean? It's like you feel really.
I'm at peace. I kind of went through that earlier where I just, you know, it's like that whole, it's like a midlife crisis for athletes, but you hit it younger because it's like, you know, like it's not forever. And, you know, you kind of do have sometimes your identity wrapped up in it. And it's like, yeah, you can go through like a bit of like a depression state where it's like shifting into something else, you know?
Yeah. And you want to leave a legacy of some sort. But I guess for you, that was the movies, right? This is going to live forever, hopefully. Yeah. I mean, unless
I don't even think about the past, to be honest. Like, it's over. You know, I'm like someone that really lives in the present. I'm thankful for what's going on today, and I love to windsurf so much. Like, I windsurf like I sail until I can't even physically sail. Like, I still sail like I do when I was a teenager. In terms of like, I still love it so much. But now I'm doing something where it's like, I feel like it's cool to be part of like the marketing side or an asset to company in terms of you're part of it, where it's like the rider thing, the psychology of it can be brutal over a long period of time, because this whole like this constant expectations and the pressure and the year to year to year to year to year. It's like,
I'm going to get it next year.
Yeah, next year. Yeah. It's just like, it's a kind of a brutal cycle. you know, but it has its perks and, you know, amazing aspects to it. But it's just like that can be difficult. Whereas like, I feel like I always tell athletes, I'm like, dude, get side hustles, like do other things alongside of it, especially now, like so difficult to grind out a career now. Like, and it's incredible. It's a shame because the ability of everybody is through the roof. Like the riding, like how committed and they are to their craft. It's just a shame that there's not the backing as much.
Yeah. So you're the marketing man. So tell us how to sell it back to the mainstream or to the, you know what I mean? Like how, because it seems like the tools are there, right?
Do you want to though? I mean, I'm telling you, we've been windsurfing out. Like Maui, everything on Maui is played out. Like you go to the grocery store, you drive on the road, everything's crowded. You surf except for windsurfing. We've been windsurfing with 8 to 10 guys for like 2 years. I mean, partly because of the pandemic and everything, but it's open now and there's still not a lot of people. And it's just like all these other sports are just blowing up. And yeah, we want it to be sustainable. But I'm telling you, it's like you see surfing and you're like, do we really want that? It just looks miserable to me. They're just sitting in like shoulder to shoulder lineups. They're so eggy. And it's like, I think we have something special. Like
there's got to be a balance though, right? There's got to be.
It has to be sustainable for sure. But I think windsurfing's cool again. It's like,
it is. I think it's fucking cool. Yeah, no, for sure. It's just like
it was never not cool to us, but you know, I think people are running through the other sports going like, yeah, and they're coming back to windsurfing, wanting that more deep reward of putting the time in, but getting those rich rewards that windsurfing gives you, those lasting rewards. You have to earn it.
Definitely. All right. That's a great way to end it. Thank you so much, Levi.
All right, bro.
Good chat.
We'll see you when I see you. You look like you're already at Hokipa. What's going on?
That's better. But it's about, what is it? Ankle high, probably. So,
hey, congratulations on you had a good contest win. Like, how long ago
year.
was?
Yeah.
Dude, that was impressive. Yeah. Smashing it. You look like you wear a helmet too, right?
We do. We have to.
You have to? Okay. I'm like, yeah, watch out for the guy that's wearing the helmet. He means business.
No, we're foiling.
He's going for blood.
Yeah.
No, you're definitely. Yeah. I was like impressed. I'm like, well, the racing is gnarly. Like the tactics and what you guys do, it's incredible. Like you guys have to be so technical at your windsurfing, and to be able to win like that, it's you know, it's not easy. It's
a grind.
Awesome, man.
Getting there.
Bro.
Next year.
Okay, sounds good. Talk soon.
Right. Cool.
Aloha.
I appreciate it. Bye.
What a nice guy, Levi Siver. Great insight there into Levi and his life through the years. If you like that podcast, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss another podcast. We're doing them every Wednesday and we've still got some big names to come from the industry. Let us know in the comments below who you want to see on the podcast. I know there's so many to go. We're struggling to get some of the women. If you know any top women out there, some of interesting windsurfing backgrounds, give us a DM. Maybe send us a message. Maybe you can have a word because we want to really hear from them. We know there's been some super influential ones over the years. So it'd be great to have some more women on the podcast. Okay, until the next one, we'll see you soon.